Alright, this is Amir Kurler here bringing you the first of our summer series for Abbey Athletics. Here with the man himself, though he's not in coat inside, that's okay. Mr. Crittenberger, coming fresh off a great first year at St. Anselms. So let's get into it. So Mr. Crittenberger, what is your hometown?
Hometown, McLean, Virginia. Local boy, Army brat. A lot of travel in my life during my first 9 or 10 years of life, but have been in the DC area for pretty much the rest of my lifetime. Langley High School.
Yeah. Alright, and to transition into that, what are your favorite sports?
Oh, I have so many. I'd have to say if you had to pin down me to one or three, football, definitely. Love football, love basketball, and love baseball. Although I'm a big Caps fan, and I love watching the Caps play. I like hockey, plenty respect it, but I have trouble watching hockey when the Caps aren't involved.
Alright, so I know you're a big DC sports fan, so what are some of your favorite sports teams in the DC area, but in general?
Well, historically the Redskins. Been a long time though, 20 plus years since the last Super Bowl. Redskins definitely, huge basketball guy, so I've loved the Bullets / Wizards over the years, although they're too often way too inept. But looking for a big year this year.
Yeah.
John Wall and Bradley Beal, and I know people want to pick Porter, we'll see about that, but I think we're on the upswing. Capitals have been so much fun the last 5 to 7 years, a lot of energy, and you know, I just love all sports. I love the college teams in this area too.
So now kind of to transition.
So I mentioned nationals, too, yeah.
So to transition, I know you played sports coming up, so what role did sports play in your life as far as life skills and just teaching you things?
Well, a huge role. You know, I consider myself a pretty good athlete. I think I'm above average. Loved it as a player, loved it as a coach. Sports provide a lot of things for you. It provides a discipline and expectation level. I think it also, as you get older, you recognize that you serve in a role or capacity that as a younger kid you think you can do it all. You think you're Michael Jordan, you can do everything, but very few can do it all. And in essence, you eventually are put in a spot where it may not be what you would have wanted, but you recognize that it's important. I played offensive line in football, and you know, no kid aspires to be an offensive lineman, but when you're a big kid who's pretty smart and fairly strong, when you play O-line, it allows you to understand the game and to open up holes for your teammates and protect your quarterback. So I think sports really puts in context for most people the opportunity to be part of a team. I think that's pretty essential.
And another thing that comes from that, could you just give us a little bit of insight or a little story from your childhood playing football, basketball as an athlete?
Well, I'll say football. It was definitely my best sport. I love baseball. I always loved basketball and wish I were a better player. Although I'm a good player in that I'm limited, so I know my role. I mean, I got better as I got older, especially becoming a coach. In basketball, I was great at setting screens, and I liked playing defense and a pretty good rebounder. And I knew that I wasn't a great shooter, so I didn't shoot often. I became a better passer. But you know, I'd say football. I remember distinctly my freshman year, our last game of the year against our arch rival at McLean High School. It was tied 6-6, and the last play of the game was a 50-yard touchdown bomb from Keith Shelley to John Lessenhoff. And I was playing left tackle, and I blocked as well as I could. And so we beat them 12-6. It's a completely forgotten and unimportant memory in probably most people's eyes, but that was in the early 70s, and I remember being so elated, and everybody was celebrating. We beat our arch rivals, and I mean, that's the type of stuff that sports can give to you, and those are the type of memories that I think we all have if we do play sports.
All right, so to transition, real quick, we're going to talk about Abbey Athletics. So one problem I think that the school kind of has, but we've been really dealing with well the last couple of years, is balanced attendance to all types of sports games. Like, you know, just from talking to other students, they say, oh, well, everyone goes to a basketball game, but no one goes to fencing events or something like that. So how do you plan to kind of balance and make sure that students are supporting all of the school sports teams equally and with as much vigor as they do with other sports?
Well, to be honest, I think that in a school like ours, where kids are doing so many things, you have a high expectation of participation, high opportunities for participation. So it is hard in a small school to have a lot of student support in the way that maybe if you go to a big public school, most of the kids don't make sports teams, and therefore what you do is you go to support the team. I love our model because if you are athletically inclined and you want to be on a team at our school, you're going to typically make a team, which is a great thing because it's all about participation instead of cheering for, I think. But to answer your question, I think a lot of it has to do with what captains of teams can do. It's really a kid-centered conversation. You saying to me, like, what could I do? I mean, I can do a lot, including go to games and talk things up, but I like the notion of captains, and you know, if the fencing wants more participation, they need to have their leadership step up at school meeting to say, big fencing event. And even if a couple kids can get out there, I think that it makes a lot of difference. And so I think it's the element of enthusiasm that the captains and the older boys who are on the team bring to the table. And then you also have to recognize that there are big moments in the year like the homecoming soccer, obviously the basketball tournament, that was very exciting. But I would love to see our school become even more, our student body more excited about supporting athletics, but we also want to support everything about the school too. It's academic this year, the filming, there was very little student support for the filming of that. I was there in person, and that would be nice to say, next year let's have 30 to 50 guys there rooting hard for our guys.
All right, and another minor issue I'd say is, you know, we have a small school, like you said. We're not a big public school with a lot of huge football fields and track and field resources. So what are some more ways you think that you can have a great upkeep of the school's athletic facilities and fundraisers and things of that nature?
Well, I guess I look at the glasses half full, and you know, we have a beautiful basketball court, for example. We have a really nice lower building facility. I think we're limited in that our major field space, the fields themselves aren't great. But we have to think about things that we could do that would be somewhat manageable without breaking the bank. Because again, part of being ahead of school is balancing all the responsibilities and the financial responsibilities. An example could be that, you know, people would maybe want a turf field, but that's a very expensive proposition. You know, a turf field costs upwards of $1 million from start to finish. So maybe the way around that is to say we put in, and I've heard conversations about this from Father Peter and Mr. Cummins and Mr. Morales, people who really know the school from the facilities lens, but maybe the route to go would be to improve our irrigation system in use of the grass field that we have currently, which will allow our field to have better maintenance and upkeep. So I think you have to be prudent about the direction you go and be proud of what you have. I think one of the great Benedictine hallmarks is the utilization and resourcefulness of what you have currently while trying to improve things.
Okay, and another little thing that we're going to talk about is hiring a new athletic director, which is obviously a big process, and just want to get your view a little bit on how you're going to handle it and what you look at in an athletic director. So what's really kind of everything behind the processes that go into hiring a new athletic director?
Well, the process itself is one where you want to get feedback from various constituents. It would be like any job that is an athletic director and a lot of other administrative positions have a lot of connectivity to different and disparate parts of the campus and the community. So like any administrative hire, you'd always want to make sure that you're listening to different stakeholders and constituents. We want to make sure that we've listened to the coaches who coach the sports, the players who play on the teams, the parents, I think to a lesser degree. The parents are supportive, but they're typically not in a position to know the nuts and bolts of what goes in the job. And then also look at a person's capacity to do the things that that job entails. I mean, the athletic director has a public face, but the athletic director also needs to be somebody who's really good with the details, the day-to-day, the scheduling of games, the officials showing up on time, tryouts, rosters, uniforms, kind of the scut work that people maybe don't see as part of that role. But at the end of the day, you need an intelligent person who's organized and on top of things, and really a great communicator. I think a lot of people presume leaders are always out in front, but I think actually a lot of leadership is being behind, circling around, talking to people, having conversations, pulling people together. I see that role as a lot of the leadership roles as what the classic point guard is in basketball, which is to make the other players around you better. I mean, think of a Magic Johnson, for example. His teammates were better because he made them be better because he put them in a position to succeed. So ironically, a lot of leadership positions, although you are public eye and high profile, you actually are doing things like making sure that tryouts run smoothly, making sure that team rosters are upkept and on the website, make sure the website is done really well. Making sure the little things that have to happen that nobody really notices unless they don't happen. In other words, if a referee doesn't show up because you forgot to double check, then that's not a good sign. It is kind of like being an official. I think people more typically notice that things that you haven't done as opposed to things that you do because there's so many details to that job. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, you want somebody who's balanced and somebody who has the capacity to understand that at St. Anselms, athletics are very important, but they're a part of the holistic approach that we bring to students. And for students who are athletically inclined and want to play in sports teams, we want to have the very best and highest level of excellence we possibly can within the context of what we try to do as a school in terms of mind, body, spirit, and holistic approach, and the fact that we want to provide opportunities for young men to become Renaissance men.
Yeah. And the last thing we're going to talk about as far as the athletic director is, would you call it an urgent issue at this point? Because I know we still have a lot of summer break to go and a lot of time to think about this. So what is really the timetable for this hire, and how is it really going to change in the next coming months and weeks?
Well, I can't go into detail, but I think you'd be reassured to know that we've made great progress.
Yeah.
And I want to get out the word to the community, you know, within a couple weeks' time that we've actually made a hire. We've made a hire that we're very comfortable with, and I want to make sure that we get the word out to people in the community about the person who will be filling in that spot next year, who's a very well-known and respected person in this community. And so people can be assured that in a summer mailing that I will have forthcoming at some stage midsummer, more information will be brought forth in regards to this hire. But you also got to remember, this is one of a small handful of hires that we've had. So what you want to do is you want to showcase the people who are coming on board new, and also celebrating people who are on their way away from here. Because, you know, like with Ms. Diggle and Brother Marvin, there are people in the community who are leaving, and we want to make sure we give quality reference to those people and the time and effort and consideration they put into their job here. At the same time, we talk about transition issues in terms of people who will be here in 13-14, which will include the new athletic director.
Yeah. All right, so one of the last things we want to talk about is in the kind of same vibe as hiring a new athletic director for the next coming school and athletic year. What are some of your predictions for Abbey Athletics in the 2013 to 2014 season as far as championships, bringing home banners, and things of that nature?
Well, I don't mean to shortchange your question, but I think more broadly. To me, if you provide the great structure and the great teamwork and the great communications and the great understanding of who we are as a school, then good things take care of themselves. And what I mean by that is, you know, you can talk about aspiring to have winning teams, but if you have really fine coaches and kids who are committed to the program, but there's an understanding across the board from the perspective of the students and their families and the coaches and the athletic director and the school leadership, what we're really trying to provide is a great avenue by which kids can pursue athletic aspirations and be parts of teams too. So to answer your question, it's really would be foolhardy on my part to say, well, we're going to win a banner and this, that, and the other, when you look back a year from now and that may or may not have happened. I'd rather say that when you have things in place that should be in place, where sportsmanship is a crucial element of what our teams are known for, team play, commitment to excellence, hard work, dedication, and kind of a selflessness that's part of being part of a team. I think when those things are in place and our coaches understand what the boys at the school go through in the day-to-day, and that from 8 in the morning till 3:30, it's wall-to-wall academics, and this is a really challenging school. But so that athletics provides a really good outlet and venue by which kids can be part of their physical makeup and well-being, but also the notion of who they can become in terms of, I'd say, kind of life skills about lifetime athletics and being fit and nutrition, and some of those things that should be infused into the conversations that kids have with coaches and vice versa. So I'm not going to go on a limb and say this team's going to do really well. Obviously we had a great year this last year. Obviously we're in the right league, the PVAC, where we're competitive in virtually every sport, where we take home our good fair share number of banners. And most importantly, where the level of competition is commensurate with what I think our kids and our families and our coaches and our administration would think would be appropriate. I don't think we have teams that are at all over the top, but we also have teams that work really hard and they commit themselves to excellence. I look back at some of the things that last year that Rob Hankins and that crew of wrestlers did in the fall to prepare for the winter season. And that meant that the wrestling team was committed to doing the best they could. But there's kids like Matt Dangle who ran cross country, Matt was preparing in his own way, but he opted to play a sport in the fall
Yeah.
that wasn't wrestling. And I have to say, I really applaud the kids at the school who do play 3 sports.
Yeah.
Sports aren't necessarily for everybody, but I know in the graduating class last year, there were 4 seniors who played 3 different varsity sports, and there were 70% of the seniors, 30 out of 43, played at least 1 varsity sport last year. I'm really excited by that.
Yeah.
And again, what I love about our school is that kids have lots of choices. We have a strong phys ed program. Intramural program is really fun, and it leads to point accumulation for the house system. But I really want to make sure that kids who want to play sports at a competitive level have great coaching, and our facilities are great, and the scheduling is great, and they can just roll out there and be the very best athletes they can be with the support and guidance of really quality coaches.
All right, and just to wrap up with a final question, as the headmaster, what is your real vision for both the athletic and academic programs here? Because, you know, we have a great balance between mind, body, and spirit, and like you said, coaches who really understand how to balance the two, athletic and academics, and know what everybody at the school kind of goes through, and how rigorous the program is from 8 to 3:30 every day. So what is really your vision looking forward? Not necessarily, like you said, banners and things, but just how really successful we can be in everything, and how the program can kind of teach life skills to the students here at the school.
Well, it's a great question, and there's a lot of diversity to my answer. One of which is, so we have 4 kids in this graduating senior class who are going on to play college sports next year. And we had a really nice celebration ceremony in the library that Mr. Padilla pulled together in mid-May to recognize those 4 gentlemen. That's really exciting. My impression is that that's the largest number of kids going into the college ranks to aspire to play interscholastic sports. That's really exciting. But I have to say too, just as exciting as that is on one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum is that we have sports teams that you can make at this school and that you're encouraged to go towards. And I look at some of the cross-country meets where the guy coming in dead last at the meet is pleased because he's improved his personal best by a minute or 2. So maybe he's at 30 minutes, and the previous meet he was at 31 or 32 minutes. That's what athletics is about, and that's what I think we do well here. I don't think that coaches would ever be hired or fired because of a winning program per se. As I said, if you're doing the right things, the winning tends to take care of itself. But we're not a school where if you have a 500 record for 2 or 3 years running, you're going to be replaced by somebody else, because we don't see things that way. I think one of the things I love about our school that's so atypical of the world around us is so many kids are specializing at such an early age in one particular sport. I think there's a part of it is the pressure that folks have, maybe their parents have, about the possibilities of that boy being able to get into a college that would be a better college than he would have gotten into without the sports side. But I do think that we do it the right way, which is to say there's a lot on your plate, pursue things that you want to do and do well. But we don't let guys dodge obligations to become something that maybe don't know what they're going to be about just because they're not currently good at something, or if they don't have an interest in it just yet. I will say a good example there is our athletics program is a great complement to our academic program. And our academics with the liberal classical arts, I mean, our kids take everything under the sun, and they get to college and they're really well versed for whatever they are going to be asked to participate in. And so in essence, whereas in some schools, maybe after you finish your core requirements and you're not really interested in math or science, you'd be allowed to kind of go away from that and to focus on the humanities. But in our school, you're going to continue taking math through the senior year, and either up through AP Calculus or AP Stats. You're going to continue taking science and invariably take a science AP or 2 or 3, even if you don't see yourself as that person, because, I mean, really, who knows what they're about at age 15 to make those choices about who they could become at 18 and 20 and 30, etc. So I think our sports program supports that notion, which is to say, let's say you're a 7th grader and you've grown early and you're kind of gawky and you go out for a team and you're not necessarily who you're going to be in another 2 or 3 years. In some schools, you get cut from that team, and you probably, therefore, lose interest or become disheartened. At our school, I think there'd be a recognition of the encouragement factor, which is to say, you know, this boy's out here and he's trying really hard, and who knows, in 2 or 3 years, if he keeps growing and sort of grows into his body, he could someday be a 6'4", 6'6" center on the basketball team. So one example I wanted to cite was Gary Dunalari. He mentioned publicly this year in affirming and recognizing the great coaching that he had had, and truly the commitment that he had made, but he was very modest about saying that. But he said about the very beginning of his freshman year in wrestling that he couldn't even do 1 push-up. And I was shocked. I was like, wow, really, one push-up? I mean, I think a good athlete can do 50 push-ups pretty easily. But his point wasn't that, you know, what a weakling he was. His point was that he came in with not much except for some desire, and he was shaped and rounded into who he became, which was an outstanding all-league wrestler and somebody who's going to college to wrestle, because of the guidance that Coach Roush and his terrific assistant coaches provided. So I just think that's emblematic of that story about wherever a boy comes in. I have a friend who once said, it's not about the All-Americans you inherit, it's about the roster you have in the first day of tryouts.
Yeah.
And that's true as a teacher too. It's whatever walks through that front door, that's your team. And it's your job as a professional to mold those kids into becoming the best they can be, and to get them to understand who they are, what they can be, and how they're going to support the team too. Which again, I love team sports. I think individual sports are cool too, but there's just something about being part of a team where your person gets enhanced in a way at the same time that you're kind of figuring out, like, you maybe are a screen setter and a good rebounder and a good defense player and a passer because maybe you're not a great shooter, and maybe you're not as quick that you can blow past people. So I think that's a really neat part of sports, which has transferable aspects to it in terms of the classroom, but really in terms of like your lifetime as an employee or as a parent or as part of a small organization at your church or something like that.
Yeah, and also kind of to incorporate academics into it, we have a lot of coaches who are teachers as well, so you see all your coaches on a daily basis and you can talk with them. They're like a part of your life, as opposed to at bigger schools which have 2,000, 3,000 students. Coaches aren't usually teachers, so you don't see them outside of maybe an hour and a half after the school day, and you don't really have that connection with them, and they don't teach you anything outside of the sport, and it really like makes a difference, I think, that you have coaches and teachers who are like the same person.
Well, I'd love to comment on that. I think where we are right now is great. I want to get better at that. One of my goals, sort of a broad picture goal as the headmaster, is the notion of hiring people in the future who are great teachers but can also coach. And by coach, I mean much more broadly. I know that our conversation is mostly about athletics, but by coach, I might mean somebody who's great with wood shop and can help build sets for the upcoming play and production, and teach boys how to use the equipment. Another example would be something like, we have a great Model United Nations program that kids are really involved with and committed to, and certainly our It's Academic and Quiz Bowl program is really robust. And you know, in both those instances, whether it's Mr. Otterson with the former, or it's certainly been Miss Enzel with the latter, those are coaches too. Those people are really inspiring and fired up in a good way to make kids be in a position where they can really take advantage of the opportunity. So the word coach means, I mean, I think great teachers are coaches too. So I think that to say coach doesn't mean only athletics, but I do want us to be moving in a direction where people like Mr. Taylor, who's very heralded no matter who you talk to, Mr. Paul Cummins, who I know was your coach this year in that middle school championship run for basketball, but I just think of those gentlemen as people who can really help to support a young person's development. But truly, as you're modeling it in the classroom, you're also modeling it on the athletic field, which is decorum and honesty and integrity and hard work and preparation, and the capacity to really reach out to kids and make sure that each child who you're working with, whether it's in the classroom or on the athletic field, knows that you care about them and knows that you really are getting to know them. And that's everything in terms of the relationship building. And that also means that kids are buying in and gaining significant ownership, which in a team setting, if you have ownership from the 1st to the 12th person on the basketball team, if the 12th man is not going to play much in the game but works his tail off in a practice setting to make the first string better, and the coach recognizes that and applauds that, that's really important. And that's an example that isn't applicable to our school, because the beauty of our school is that when kids make teams here, they also get to play. But that was more like a model, like a professional sports team.
Definitely. All right, so just to wrap up, that's the first of our summer series. Stay tuned. As soon as we have news on the new athletic director hire, we'll get you an interview on that. I'm Amir Kohler for Abbey Athletics. This is Mr. Crittenberger.
Thanks,
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
All right.
Peace.